Welcome to RD Cloud Compute. In this video, I will cover how to create a failover cluster in Windows servers. So for this, I have two Windows 2019 servers named Node 1 and Node 2. Both are running VMware, running on a virtual machine running on a VMware ESXi, and it is domain joined to attach to my rdcloudcompute.local active directory. So the node 1 IP address ends with 220 and the node 2 is 221, and let's log into the one of the node 1 and let's start configure the server. So in this one, I don't have any shared disks for the cluster. It will be a plain failover cluster. I'm not going to use any shared disks. I will cover one cluster with a shared disk in future. So just go to server manager and manage, add server role, select one of the node and click next. Go to the features, select failover clustering, add features. Yeah, now click next. Yeah, install it. It will take a couple of seconds, depends on your server configuration, and post installation complete successfully. Reboot the server, and we need to do the similar steps or add the similar feature in the node 2 as well. If you have more than 2 nodes or 4 node, 5 node, whatever, you repeat the same step in all the nodes. Yeah, it's completed. The installation is completed and says successfully completed. Close it, and then if you want, you can restart both the nodes at the same time. I am going to do after just add the feature in the second node and then restart both the nodes together. Click next and install. If you want, you can select the restart destination server automatically. You don't need to manually go and restart it. Yeah, in this one I'm going to select that option and let it restart automatically. It takes a couple of seconds. Let's wait for a few seconds. Should be done. It's almost there. Yep. The installation is completed on the second node. It will automatically reboot it, and meanwhile I'm going to restart the node 1. Okay, it's pending for reboot. Just restart it. Let's wait for both the nodes to come back online. Should be back now. Let's try node 2. Yeah, it's online. Okay. Yes, it's. Let's check node 1 as well. Yes, node 1 is online. Let's do an RDP. Okay, now we have both the nodes online. Okay, yep, 220 and 221 both are online. Go back to the server manager and go to tools. Now you should be able to see failover cluster manager. Click on that. Okay, do not show this message. Okay, Okay, since we don't have any clusters, we says no items found. If you have an existing cluster, that will be listed there. Okay, click on create a cluster and click next. Now enter the server name manually one by one, or if you want search the Active Directory, select enter the node. Since I have both nodes similar, almost similar names, so search with node and node 1, node 2, so I can select all the nodes together. Yes, everything's added. Yeah, so this validation, cluster validation steps, run all of the default recommended ones, which will highlight if you have any issues like disks are not shared properly, networking is not configured, additional NICs are not configured, all those things to test everything, and then it will give you the error messages. It's good to have good to run all the tests and make sure we have fixed all the issues or errors wherever it is possible, which is applicable to you. Some of them may not be applicable for that particular setup. Like for me, I don't have any shared disks attached to the servers, so it will find it as a report it as a issue. So let's wait, it's doing a final validation on the network communication. Yes, the test is passed, but I have some errors. Let's see. Let's click on view report. Okay, let me okay, go away. Yes. Okay, as I said, I have an error message. It's a disk validation failed, and I have some minor warnings in the network because there's only one network interface attached to both the nodes. I don't have any second network or a heartbeat network. So, which is not a mandatory one for this 2019 or 2016 failover clusters, but if you want to add this, use a dedicated heartbeat network for an higher added additional checks. Yeah, you can go for a dedicated heartbeat network. I'm going to ignore this one because I don't have any shared disks or clustered the disks which I'm not going to use any disks in the clusters. Okay, rest all looks fine. I'm going to close this report, proceed with next. Finish. Yep, now you have to enter a name for a cluster, so I'm going to select a name as a cluster 1, and what is it, IP address where the cluster can be managed remotely, or the IP address will map to the cluster name, which is cluster 1. I'm going to use 233. It will validate the IP and DNS name availability in your network. If you have an existing name or IP conflict, it will throw an error. Yep, it will automatically add all the eligible items to the cluster. So in my case, it will be just a network adapters and the servers. Okay, it's creating a cluster. Yep, it will automatically register the cluster in the Active Directory. Yep, now everything is completed. If you click on the report, if you want to go through all the steps and make sure everything is as per your requirement, or if you have any minor error, I don't see any issues, it's successfully completed, so I'm gonna close it. If you have any issues, that report will help you to identify the issues. Yep, now we have the cluster 1 created with the 2 nodes. So cluster 1 has 0 clustered roles. I don't have any roles created so far. So 2 member nodes added part of this cluster. I have 1 cluster network. So this is the cluster core resources, like a cluster name which you can use to manage the cluster remotely or locally, and this IP address, that underlying IP address of the cluster DNS name. Okay, let's explore the options. So yeah, I don't have any roles created yet. And moving to node, I have two nodes. You can see all in the summary of the node, IP address, network connections, roles that is currently running on the particular node, and disks that is part of the disk pools, physical disks. Yeah, I don't have anything much. And then the number of assigned vote and current voting for the cluster quorum. Okay, all those details you can view from here. And then storage, yeah, I don't have any storage attached to it. So if you have anything like a direct attached storage or shared via SCSI or FC cables, that should be enclosure pools, all the disks, things should be available here. And yeah, network, as I said, I have only one network here. I don't have a heartbeat. Yeah, that should be fine. And if you see that one cluster use, it says allow communication on this network cluster connection and the client connections. If you have a heartbeat, you have to select do not allow client communication in this. User data will only, the heartbeat will, traffic will be allowed in that. Okay, and then coming back to the witness, the main menu, I don't have anything configured so far. If you have a servers on the same site or use like old days, you can use a disk, shared disk as a quorum or a witness, or you can use the node majority or a network file share. So it depends on your configuration or design, depends on the number of nodes, or if you want to run the cluster across the different sites or geographically isolated locations, you can use a file share witness or a iSCSI disk. Okay, in this one I'm gonna use the file share witness, so I'm gonna select the second option, file share witness. So the file share path, the file share should be on a third site if you are using two different sites, like a site A and site B. If a node 1 is on a site A and node 2 on a site B, this witness is recommended to be on this third node. I'm gonna use, I have a file share created from Active Directory server, which is not recommended for production, but yeah, for just a lab or a demo, I can use that share. Okay, select the cluster. So the cluster configuration will automatically, the wizard will automatically enable all the permissions needed to this folder. You don't need to add anything specifically. Yep, now this cluster folder is, I have added the file share witness. This will be used as a quorum in the 2003 clusters, or the like old days cluster failover clusters. Okay, if you want to add a role or install a files like a file server, print server, whatever it is, you can create a role from here. Right, like these are the default predefined roles available, like a DHCP server, Hyper-V, iSCSI target server, a virtual machine server, file server, print. Or you can run some generic services like Windows service, or your application runs on a server. If you create a Java service or anything like that, you can add it from a generic service. So for this demo or a video demo purpose, I'm going to use the VMware Tools service. It is since it is both virtual machines, I'm gonna I have a Windows Tools, VMware Tools installed on the server, and both have the VMware services running. When I do a failover, this VMware Tools service will be stopped on one node and it will be failed over to another node. It's not a great example for but yeah, that's the only service common I have apart from the default Windows services on my machine, so I'm going to use that one. Yeah, just name that service name for a better identification. And yeah, you have to mention an common IP or a dedicated IP address which will be failed over or mapped to the name. So whenever the server role fails over to a different node, you can connect using the specific IP address or a name. The name and IP address will be moved to different nodes wherever the role is moved. Okay, everything created successfully. So it's still pending state because it takes a few seconds to bring up the service online. Now the generic service, the role is running on the node 1 and everything is up and running. If you see, this type is generic service and it has two nodes. If you want, you can select the preferred node here and failover policy set. I'm going to leave that failover policy to default. If you look at this, the service generic service name is VMware Tools and the IP address. You can access the service using VMware tools. DNS name or the IP address 231, and I'm gonna just stop this failover the service to node 2. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna have some right click issue, so I'm gonna use the more actions in the right side. If you see there will be a option move. If you select, you can choose a select a node manually. If you have multiple nodes, if you have a node failure, you can select the best possible node. It will automatically move it to an best node available node. Yeah, now it is the service is moved, the role is moved to a second node. Yeah, I don't have any disks attached, so see, I have some warnings in the cluster. It says the computer object associated with the cluster VMware tools could not be updated. Yeah, that's fine. If you do not have, so this generally, if you get this error message, make sure you have a cluster object. The cluster 1 AD object has an permission to create a child object or computer objects in the OU where your host nodes are located. Yeah, I'm gonna ignore that one. Yep, so all the DNS curve rows, all the status looks okay. So I'm gonna stop the role and delete it. Yep, so we have successfully created a failover cluster and added a service. Thank you for watching.